House will come back to order. House will come back to order. Mr. Clerk, ring the bell. This House will come back to order. Got several measures still ahead of us. The clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions. The clerk will read.
Celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Alpharetta Elementary School building, commending and congratulating Sarah Naoma Dubose Chance, recognizing the academic accomplishments of Grayson High School's Merlina Vojikovic and Catherine Meadows, recognizing commending Sean M. Powers and Michael Jablonski for co-authoring an award-winning book, commending Ashley Flagello, Armucci High School's 2017 star teacher, commending Thompson Liu, Darlington School's 2017 star student, commending Sabik Dewan, Rome High School's 2017 star student, honoring Rabbi Elon and Miriam Feldman on the occasion of their 25th rabbinical anniversary, commending Yvette Moyse for her outstanding accomplishments, recognizing commending Jose A. Marquez Leon, honoring the life and memory of John Crunkleton, recognizing commending Officer David Desper's courage and for being a 200 Club Law Enforcement and Firefighting Medal of Valor Award nominee, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. For what purpose does Representative Dreyer rise?
Motion,
State your
motion, Mr. Speaker.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 267 by Senator Orrock, the 36th to be titled, an act to repeal an act creating the Hapeville Water and Sewer Authority.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none and it is so ordered. Intragovernmental coordination. We are back on the rules calendar. We are back on the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 153.
Senate Bill 153 by Senator Brass, the 28th, be titled, an act to amend Chapter 20, Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia, Annotated, relating to hearing aid dealers and dispensers, so as to exempt certain activities of hearing aid dealers, hearing aid dispensers, and other related to the manufacture and sale of certain non-prescription hearing aids. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Maybe y'all didn't hear me. I said we are back on the rules calendar, which means you're going to be considering legislation. So this House will be in order. Chair recognizes Chairman Earhart to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen.
Just a moment, gentlemen. just up out of the well. Chair's been advised that the Rules Committee has limited debate on this measure to 1 hour. That does not include the presentation nor the chairman's time, if any, but it will include those that are speaking. The chair will allocate that at 30 minutes per each side. Gentlemen may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in that time of the year when some bills that pass the House need Senate vehicles. Some bills that pass the Senate need House vehicles. Some of them need Senate vehicles. Some of them just need life support. Fortunately, this one has life, and this was the optometry measure. And like many things, if you haven't been contacted by this, you have not been here for the last few months. So I will try not to do a lot of reiterative conversation here, but I do want to talk about this. I've been involved in this optometry debate probably for 20 years. I remember when we first began this discussion, optometrists in Georgia were probably, generally the statistics were, every time we tried a scope change, Georgia was the only state in the nation where an optometrist could not practice a certain new procedure or procedures that all other 49 states and military bases could be allowed. And since about 2005, we've steadily brought Georgia into the 20th century with respect to optometric practice. It's more reasonable. It allows access for rural health care. It allows highly trained doctors of optometry to provide crucially needed services for our constituents. And ladies and gentlemen, every single time that we've tried to do these kind of things, you hear the Chicken Little scenario of the sky is falling. If optometrists are allowed to prescribe oral narcotics for conditions of the eye, there will be blood in the streets. There will be blood in the halls. There will be eyeballs rolling down the road. I was on the roads this morning and I didn't see any eyeballs. And none of these things ever materialize. However, when we expand the scope, I've made the argument, again, every single time, what's the experience in the other states? And it always comes back, there are no malpractice suits against these optometrists in other states. And believe me, in today's litigious world, if there were a problem and somebody cut up your eyeball or gave you the wrong medicine or did something traumatic to you, they would bring suit. That's just the way it happens. And I've asked for that every time, and I've never been given an example, even one. The statistical chances of that are amazing, and I'm sure there's probably a few, anecdotally, but it's just not. And let's get to this bill. We heard testimony in committee that because this is injections into the eyeball, now that makes it easy to get into the hyperbole of this. Oh my goodness, a needle near an eye, that's scary stuff. It really is. It's concerning if the individual that's going to do it is not highly trained. Now, I'm going to defer most of this conversation to my colleague later who's going to testify, Dr. James Beverly, an optometrist, because a lot of what we're hearing is fairly demeaning against these highly trained individuals. These optometrists go to 4 years of optometry school. They go to the same schools as medical doctors for the early pharmacology training and the early training in this. And then they have thousands of hours of their own training. Who spends more time around an eyeball than an optometrist? Ladies and gentlemen, we allow physicians' assistants to make these kind of injections around the eye. We're going to dance into the weeds of the subconjunctival and where the membrane of the eye and the injection itself. And yes, it sounds scary, but please remember, the individuals doing this spend all day in the eye. Optometrists spend hours in the eye under that subconjunctival layer digging out pieces of rock, digging out things that are in your eye all the time. And you can get to an optometrist. Our ophthalmologists in the state are highly trained surgeons. They're busy doing surgery. I'm not saying they can't get to this, but I'd much rather, if I wanted access for a painful eye, that I knew a trained individual could do it, would be getting to an optometrist office where there's many of them, or to the very few surgeons because of its specialized nature. They're both very good at what they do. This, as always, comes down to turf, comes down to, there's always money involved in the turf battles. Who gets the office visit? Members of the House, this is a simple, straightforward proposition that allows members of the optometry community in the state of Georgia to do the things that we as citizens need in and around the eye. It is not something that is going to harm our citizens. You may see pictures of bloody eyeballs. I think you got some of them on your desk. Just FYI, that's not an eyeball that was harmed by an optometrist. That's an ophthalmologist eyeball. Oops. Because they're not allowed to do that right now. Again, if you want to compare horror stories, I don't want to get into the malpractice lawsuits that may be around the ophthalmological profession. But if you're going to demean and disregard the training of an optometrist, do compare those suits. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask, there's several people, including my good friend Chairman Meadows, who want to speak to this measure. So I'm going to conclude my remarks and ask for your favorable consideration. I'll be glad to yield for questions.
You have no questions. We have a number of members that have signed up to speak. The chair recognizes Representative Kelly to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come here today in support of Senate Bill 153 because I want to share an experience that I had last Friday when we all had the opportunity to go back and live our lives outside of the Capitol. I have a law firm, and I'm on Main Street in Cedartown right next to our optometrist. And I was walking out to my car for lunch. He happened to be coming in, and we had the opportunity to talk. And his son right now is getting a optometry degree in Memphis, Tennessee. And he talked to me about this measure. And so I asked him, and he made clear that his son wants to come back to Georgia. He wants to come back and practice with his family business. But he's worried about how restrictive some of our scope of practice issues are here in Georgia. And I asked him specifically about this measure that we're debating, and he made clear that he gets the training to do this. And so we're having students trained in this procedure, and then we're telling them through certainly a turf battle that they do not have the opportunity to do it in Georgia. So I just think it's important that we think about our constituents, especially us in rural Georgia, who are trying to have our constituents come back here and make our communities healthy. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Lott to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I also come to support SB 153. And as a member of the Health and Human Services Committee, we did have the opportunity to hear much of the testimony on both sides. And I was very pleased that from our first bill having been dropped in its original form, there were some issues and concerns that were brought up that were absolutely needing change. So with that bill, one of the biggest things that were discussed originally was the safety issue. And we managed to, if you see this bill now, and if you've read it, there's a lot of anatomy terminology on there. when we were granting exceptions, what the optometrist cannot do, we added the words peribulbar, facial nerve block, subconjunctival anesthetic, dermal filler, intravenous injections, intramuscular injections, and intraorbital nerve block. We added those things because that was a discussion and debate that was being had, things that they really wanted to make sure that the optometrists clearly could not do, which left us what they could do. After that discussion, it became about education. And there were no specifics on education at the time in the first bill. So what we did was we worked together again and created new wording, some of which I believe is on your desk. The training program had not specified the requirements. We added 30 hours of specific training requirements. That is in addition to the training that they receive in optometry school. So that was clearly specified. So this was the evolution of the bill. There was some question brought up about the word enrolled in a program, and I think that word was kept in the bill so that those students that were in the course could actually practice on human beings rather than have to just practice on cadavers. So I would like to say we focused on the safety, we went to the education, we addressed all that. And I think that it's imperative, and something that we've discussed earlier this session, that we use our healthcare professionals to the highest level of their training. We had this similar discussion with the dental hygienists and the dentists, and it did take 2 years to work that through, but I think we saw properly to move those hygienists into a little more freedom, which is a very similar scenario to where I think these optometrists need to go. That is how we move our state forward with accessibility and affordability of health care. And I yield the well. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Meadows, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what it is with that thing. Somebody's pulling it out. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise in support of this bill. We've been working on this bill for years. We haven't had a change in scope for at least 8 and probably 13 years. And yes, this is a change in scope. It allows optometrists to give you a shot underneath the little cellophane layer of your eye. There is no shots in the eye. There is no surgery. And I think you need to pay attention to that last word. There is no surgery. I've gotten, believe it or not, I've heard about this bill from several of my friends who are ophthalmologists. I would probably tell you that the majority of them really don't care. I can tell you that those that do care have the same misconception. Optometrists are not going to do surgery on your eyes. I've seen some of the most terrible pictures in my life shown in committee meetings. Those weren't done by an optometrist. The Ophthalmologist Association has fears that what is about to take place is going to be detrimental to the health of the people of the state of Georgia if you vote yes. But with that said, we allow a lot of people to give shots around the eye now. Your dermatologist gives you shots around the eye. Your PA gives you shots around the eye. And then the one that is the best one is your tattoo doctor. Can tattoo that little spot right there on your eye. It's called your eyelid. And they do tattooing with a needle. And that's awfully close rather than around the eye to being right on the eye. Now, I don't know how much trouble there is with those type things. I'm asking you today to consider giving optometrists who have the training until they're told they can't do it, who are willing to go back to school, to a school that from a medical doctor who is an ophthalmologist, to get them, for lack of a better word, recertified, retrained. And yes, doctors of ophthalmology come right out of school and they start doing this, and they've been in business for 20 years. And yes, they do it. They do it regularly. My optometrists have been to school and trained, and then they've had to stop. This gives them the opportunity to go back here where they got training and go forward and do something that they are trained to do. An open mind's all I'm asking for. Thank you. I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Deffenbaugh to speak to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And for all of you, I come in opposition to the bill, and it's not a good person to follow in opposing. I am bringing you a story from my ophthalmologist. Better? And this ophthalmologist, my ophthalmologist, is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because I'm right on the border. I asked him about this bill, and he said Tennessee did this about 7 years ago and approved it. And at that time, he had no interest, no concerns about it. He just let it happen. He said if he has to go back, he would vehemently oppose the bill. And I asked him why. And he says the repairs that I've had to do on patients who have had this procedure done. So besides that issue, I think that I am of the opinion that we in the House approve these things and bills and other issues, and people think because we approved it, it's good for us. And I would not want my name attached in saying that I approve this, especially by myself. If I was the only one doing this, I would not do that. So I am asking you to consider not doing it as well. We have ophthalmologists and we have optometrists, which I have some trouble delineating sometimes, but they're for different purposes. So let's keep the purposes that they're trained to do and do very well in both cases. So again, I ask you to vote no for this issue.
Chair recognizes Chairman Willard to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's hard for me to say I'm for or against the bill per se, but I've got some concerns about the bill. I think from the standpoint of safety, not a turf, but the issue of safety, my dear friend Chairman Earhart, I got to disagree with this being a bill that we should accept. We know it's not a hearing aid bill. That's what it started out as, because it came over here and that bill has been stripped out and another bill has been placed in, which we have the right to do. But I have some concerns, first of all, about the bill not having come through a committee of this body to have the blessings of a committee and then brought to us that way. It's because apparently they can't get a bill through the committee it's been assigned to. Well, you can always file a bill again and ask the speaker, hopefully, to put it somewhere else, maybe in agriculture, since they talk about it being help to the rural segment of society. Safety of the eyes. Remember this, safety of the eyes. I can lose my feet, I can lose my hands, I can lose my hearing, and I can make adjustments to those things. I can lose the speech, I can still write. I can lose some of my senses. But when you lose your eyes, you've got something that's so valuable that cannot ever be replaced. And just as Representative Neffenbaugh is talking about his ophthalmologist, he's having people come to him who have had apparently some injuries from optometrists doing this type of work on their eyes. Now, those of you who served here over the years with me, remember I used to wear glasses. I wore glasses for 40 years. And this past year, because of cataracts, I went to see a doctor, this young lady, dear lady, named Dr. Marie Aaron with the Emory Eye Clinic. I'm talking to her about the great work they can do today with eye surgery and removing cataracts. I remember back when my grandmother had it done, she was locked in a bed with her head not being able to move for like 10 days or something. It was just unbelievable. I was in and out about 20 minutes. Amazing. And the thing was, I could see great. But point being, when I went in to see her, I said, Dr. Aaron, how many times have you done this operation? This lady's probably, I'd say, close to 50. And she said 6,000 times. 6,000. You talk about working on the most valuable assets you have as far as personal belongings to your body, and that is your eyes. You want to have somebody, when they start touching your eyes, that knows what they're doing. And I say to my good friend, Mr. Earhart, and Chairman Meadows, let them work on doing a sty or something, but never let them put something onto the eyeball itself. If you can have that word to say they cannot touch the eyeball, if they cannot touch the eyeball, I could probably go along with what's being done. But when you start touching that eyeball, you're messing with something that is so valuable and so delicate, the slightest thing can cause permanent injury. So it's not a turf battle, it's a safety issue. And I think each of us sit here with that decision in our own mind about what should we best do as a safety question for the people of our state. And for that reason, I will have to oppose the bill until they can say you can't touch the eyeball. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Price to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I rise today in fierce opposition to this bill. I don't think I have been more impassioned by any instance this year or my previous year, and this is only my second year. But this, to me, is something that this body has no business dealing with. No business superseding the expertise of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, the Georgia Society of Ophthalmology, the American College of Surgeons, Medical Association of Georgia, and that entity that determines what training is required. We have completely ignored all of the recommendations from those people. We have rigorous standards in this state. We expect our physicians to offer the utmost in expertise and patient care delivery. Why settle for less? There is no reason, no need. I know of no constituent who wants this bill. I know of no burning need for this bill. I know of no problem this bill solves. This bill is in the wrong direction for patient care in this state. Take a look at this brown sheet, and I'm starting to wonder why it's brown. SB 153, hearing aid dealers and dispensers. You heard the clerk describe it. What does this bill have to do with hearing aids? This is a subterfuge and an attempt to confuse and obfuscate the reality that somebody wants this bill and we do not. This has never come to this floor for debate. This has been voted down twice in the House Committee of Health and Human Service. So what did they do? Took it over to the Senate, ran it through there, brought it back into regulated industries. Did they ask either of the physicians in this body to come to any of those discussions? No. And what do they have now? They have an amendment that says, oh, we're going to have training. We're going to have 30 hours of training. Oh, great. Ophthalmologist has 17,000 hours of training, has seen every complication that he could possibly see related to this. 30 hours? And you don't even have to have a certificate. You only have to be enrolled. Read it, please, ladies and gentlemen. If you have it in front of you, it's the lighter brown paper, which also may be an indication of its worth. On lines 19 is enrolled in a course. Enrolled. That means you've paid your money. And maybe the folks who are bringing this to us want the money that you pay for this course that you do not have to even pass or get a certificate from. This is bad news. There is no shortage of ophthalmologists. In this state, you can drive to an ophthalmologist as easily as you can get to a gas station or a Walmart. So it is not an access of care issue. There are 42 states that do not allow this. 42 states do not allow this. Look at the disingenuous timeline of legislative action in the state that's been brought to us from our friendly optometrists. Since 1988, they have legislated and not educated. I have 2 pages of the bills that have been brought before this body. First of all, they wanted to do topical medication. Then they want to do Schedule 3 and Schedule 4 controlled substances. Then they want to treat glaucoma. Then they want to give non-narcotic oral analgesics. Actually, they are allowed to provide hydrocodone now. Aren't we in the middle of a epidemic of narcotic abuse? Yes. Well, here's another group of people who's giving out that medication. We have been fighting these changes for years. Why does it keep coming up over and over again? There is a big difference in an optometrist and an ophthalmologist. An ophthalmologist goes to college for 4 years, medical school for 4 years, and residency training for 4 to 6 years. An optometrist comes nowhere close to this. Let's talk about lawsuits. Supposing something goes wrong and you get in a lawsuit and somebody wants to sue for the damages. Well, the standard of care that the optometrist is held to is not the same standard as an ophthalmologist, so he gets off and the patient recovers nothing. So this is not a good thing. We are here to protect the citizens of Georgia, both in the health of their eye and in the legal area if they have to go to a lawsuit to protect themselves. Patient safety, we've talked about this. The risk for blindness is phenomenal. I have been in the operating room many, many times and witnessed the ophthalmologist do retrobulbar injection prior to cataract surgery. Many occasions, there's a retrobulbar hemorrhage. Not unusual. It is a known complication. But guess what? If you're not there and ready and prepared to treat that, you've got about 2 minutes or the person's blind. Well, optometrists are independent practicers. They're not practicing under an ophthalmologist. So if they slip with this needle, and it's easy to do, if you slip with that needle and you've got yourself a hemorrhage somewhere, you've got 2 minutes or else the patient's blind. But they say, I'm scaring you. I don't want to scare you. I just want to let you think about this in a rational way, not on day 38 when this has never come to this body before because it was stopped twice in the Health and Human Services Committee, which it should have been, and it was. If you look carefully at this bill, it's absurd. We've confused parts of the body with drugs. It's badly written. It looks to me like any pharmacologic agent can be used if you look on page 2, line 31. Any pharmacologic agent. Does that include local anesthetics? Does that mean that we're now going to be doing upper and lower blepharoplasties to help people look better? What else is going to come up next year and the following year? If you look carefully at the bill, look at what was stricken. Twice it's mentioned no injections in the eye. That's stricken this year. What's going to be stricken next year? What is the ultimate goal? We know what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is to do full surgery of the eye. These injections are probably in the direction of treating glaucoma. Again, there are many ophthalmologists who will refer their glaucoma patients away. Talked to several out on the ropes today. They said, I don't treat glaucoma, I wouldn't dare. I send them an hour away sometimes to go to a super specialist. But we're going to have folks out there that are going to be treating diseases that most ophthalmologists don't treat themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, take a close look at this. Most of you are not physicians. I'm a physician. I'm a board-certified anesthesiologist. I have stuck needles in places that you probably don't even want to think about. I have stuck needles in your back. I've done epidurals for you don't want to hear about it. Okay. Stuck epidurals in people's back. But you know what? There's been the occasion where I pushed a little too far and it went into the spinal area, and then you get a headache. You have to treat that. It's a known complication. It happens a lot. But it's treatable and there's no problems. However, one little slip in the eye, not so easily treated, not so easily corrected. So I am passionate about this. I draw your attention to the letters on your desk from several ophthalmologists who have decried this trend and this continuing trend over the years. Also draw your attention to the map of Georgia, the colored page provided by Representative Silcox, showing the lack of need for this expansion of scope. And I just want to leave with, we need to keep the optometrists in their area of competency. And there's a wonderful role for optometrists in the treatment of the eye. But they are not qualified to manage the complications of injections that go awry. So I would say, please, let's not legislate, let's educate. If somebody wants to be doing these things in the eye, let them go to medical school and let them do an ophthalmology residency. And oh, by the way, dermatologists actually are medical doctors. So I'd rather have a dermatologist working around the eye than an optometrist. And I really think that we all want the highest level of care for Georgians. We want the best medical care. We want the requisite education, training, and experience. And it should not be up to this body to relax the standard of care for the patients and citizens of Georgia. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. We're now on to the chairman's time. The chair recognizes the chair of the Regulated Industries Committee, Chairman Maxwell.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to yield my time to Representative Beverly, who's going to come and address this issue.
The gentleman has that right. Chair recognizes Representative Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple years ago, my dad passed. And I stood in his well and talked about a saying that he would say to me. And he would say to me, Jake, always be faithful. Faithfulness is the tenacious audacity to be resolute to a person, a plan, or an event, in spite of every assault, siege, or blockade to the contrary. And with that definition of faithfulness, I try to be faithful to myself, to my God, to my family, and to my friends. and to causes that I thought are important. Right now, I'd like to say to Chairman Meadows, thank you for being faithful to optometry. Chairman Earhart, thank you for being a faithful friend to optometry. To Jody Lott, to Trey, Kelly, thank you guys for being faithful. But I also want to say thank you to Representative Cooper, Representative Beskin. Thank you to Representative Price for being faithful to your opinion. Because in this deliberative body, we have an opportunity to debate real stuff. And this is one of those times in the past 6 years that I've been here that this is real stuff for real people. It's not keeping score. It's about the real deal, health care for Georgians. When I graduated from college with a biology degree, a major in biology, a minor in chemistry, and a concentration in physics. When I went to optometry school, at the end of my first year of optometry school, we took so many basic science classes that the Board of Regents in Pennsylvania authorized our optometry school to give us another bachelor's of science degree. Why? Because we took human anatomy, biochemistry, microbiology, epidemiology, histology, pathology, neuroanatomy, and the list goes on. At the end of my second year, we had taken anterior segment disease, posterior segment disease, ocular pathology, ocular pharmacology, and the list goes on and on and on. You could nod, Dr. Mark. He's like, yeah, that's probably pretty true. Because it's true. So you're talking about people who are highly skilled, who've been trained to understand eye conditions. At the end of my second year, we had to take a basic science board which tests everything that you learned those first 2 years. What has been said is that we're not trained, but in our first year, we started seeing patients in a class called clinical diagnostic procedures. It went from the first semester, second semester, third semester, it went through. And so we learned how to become ambidextrous when it came to using instrumentation. What would we do? So we would have to learn how to use a retinoscope, a direct ophthalmoscope, a binocular indirect ophthalmoscope. We learned how to use Volk lenses and punctal plugs. We went through a whole gamut of things that we had to do in our first year. By the time I finished my second year, we had to take a board that spanned 2 days, basic science. Then we had to do a clinical science board. Then we had to do a clinical skills board. As a matter of fact, today, if you look at optometry.org, optometry students are taking their first set of boards right now, basic science skills boards today. They have to take a clinical science skills board in another year after they prove proficiency in clinic. And then they have to take a therapeutic management of ocular disease a basic science course. You have to pass that. And now, the National Board of Optometry, examiners in optometry require, it is a requirement that you have injection skills because they're teaching this stuff. Now, why? In 1923, the Pennsylvania College of Optometry issued the first license. That's the school that I went to. I'm proud. I was the president of my class at the time. I'll give you all a shout out if anybody's listening. But it was the first optometry school, first license given in Pennsylvania. And from then, technology's changed. Back then, I think we had where's Bubba Epps? Bubba's somewhere in here. Bubba's eye, he's waves, right? Bubba's eye, he came to see me a few years ago. And we had to use these trial lenses that were in this box. They were dusty. I was like, Bubba, I can get you right. And I think I straightened you out. Bubba, shake your head, yes, because you know it's true. Thank you. And so we did that. But in my third year, and so that's what they used then. But today we have this thing called an OCT where we can do a MRI, the back part of the eye, in ways that didn't even exist when I got out of optometry school 20 years ago. Didn't even happen. But technology's changed, and the way that we do medicine has changed. My third year, and I got to bring this to a close, but I want to ask for your favorable consideration, but I want to give you two examples. In my third year, we had to go into clinics all around Pennsylvania. We had to go into this one clinic called the Woodbine Eye Center. And Woodbine were people who were severely disabled, mentally and physically disabled. And I'm in clinic with my buddy Sarik Khatchatorian, who's in North Carolina today practicing. He can do injections. He's been doing them for years, amongst other things. But anyway, Sarik and I in this clinic, and this guy walks in, a fork is in his eye. He couldn't speak. He couldn't do it. And we had to get this fork out. And we're like, all right, man, it's time to knuckle up and get after this thing. And we did. And then the surgeon came in, he started doing what he had to do, and we cleaned this guy up. And when we were done, this guy who could not speak, profoundly disabled, smiled. and I was hooked. And I wasn't hooked on surgery. That's why I went to optometry school. And I think that if someone wants to do surgery in or around the eye, go to medical school, get a surgical degree, get a license to practice, and do that. That is not what this bill is. This bill, and if you take a look at your hand, this is about injection into the distal portion of an interlesional mass that's in the eye that's less than 5 millimeters. Now, if you take a look at your hand, let's talk about these needles, because I know that everybody, oh, these needles. If you take a look at your hand, you have this sort of intermediate phalange, and you have this distal phalange, and in between you have this line, right? That line, from that line to the tip of your finger is about 1 inch on most people. All right, that would be a bad joke. Okay, so anyway, it's about 1 inch. The needle that we're talking about is about half that size. It's about half that size. And you take a Schlesian clamp, and we're talking about styes. You take a Schlesian clamp, you put the clamp around that, and you put about a millimeter of a low-grade steroid that we already can prescribe into the eye. And it usually disappears, but that's a part of a treatment protocol. If it doesn't disappear, then we refer. And we refer all the time. Ophthalmologists, as they say, some of my best friends are ophthalmologists, right? We refer to them all the time, every single day. Why? Because we've been trained to recognize the difference between a basal cell carcinoma and aureolum. We've been trained to do that. And we come to the state, and there's ad infinitum of exams that we have to go through to show our proficiency. So if there's a complication, what do? Let's say I perforate eye with a 1/2-inch needle, it could happen. But if it would have happened, if it ever happened, you better believe that every desk in this place would have been flooded with that lawsuit. But if it did happen, what would you do? What is a protocol? Number one, I would look into the anterior chamber for cells and flare. I would check the pressure inside of somebody's eye using a Goldman tonometer. And I would look and see, okay, well, is this eye compromised or not? Is this eye becoming icicle, or is the pressure in the eye being elevated? We're trained to do that, and we do it every single day. So to say that we don't have the training is disingenuous, to say the least. What I would say to you, in this bill, it's a first step in scope. And I'm going to say first step toward a scope change. Because if you look at technology, if we were still practicing the way we practiced in 1923, the way we practice today, we'd be obsolete and I wouldn't be standing here. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future. What I would encourage you to do is take a look at optometry.org when you get a chance to see what these kids are being tested on. I would also encourage you to go to newgradoptometry.com, and I know there's a debate over what states can do it or not. It spells it out. Just Google plus injections plus the state, and it'll tell you. 12 states can do it. 3 additional states can not only do injections, they can do laser treatments. Just take a look at it. It's right there. Google it. It's there. So what I would say to you today is that I would respectfully ask for you to give us the ability to treat folk in the state of Georgia, not going into the eye. And I think if you look at that code section, we specifically took a bunch of stuff out. And we're not going into the eye, through the eye, around the eye. We're going into the lid, subconjunctival space. Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield the well for questions. I yield, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
You do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question.
Does gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I was persuaded by Chairman Willard's concern about the eyeball itself. What is in this bill that gives assurances that nothing in this bill would let someone touch the eyeball? Because if I'm in a place where the eyeball to me in this circumstance is off limits, I don't see anything in black and white on this page that tells me that.
Well, I'll answer that with 2 questions. Thanks for the question. The number one is I think that there are 2 things. First of all, if you look at Code Section 4330-1, it talks about really what we can do. But what we're also concerned about is 51-127, which is if you mess up, then there are consequences. So that's first. So nobody's going to put their license in line if you're not going to practice with that. If you can get sued, basically. Now, the safety issue. The safety issue is this. When you talk about the lid, we're talking about taking your lid right here. If we were going to do a Schlesian injection with a low-grade steroid, you take a clamp that isolates this space. You turn it over. You pull it literally away from the eye, and you make an injection. And it takes that long. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we're skilled to do this. People come in with foreign bodies in the eye. I think that someone told me they had Chairman Nick said that he had a splinter in his eye that an optometrist took out. And so this is what we do, and we're trained to do it. And so if we mess up, if it becomes a problem, then I think there's a remedy, not just with your license, but also in court. So there's an ability to say, look, we've been trained to do this. We're not going in the eye, through the eye. We're not messing with these ciliary nerves or these arteries, Representative Setzler. We are skilled to do it, and I think that given a chance, and if there was a problem, trust me, there would have been issues that we've seen. So I think we can.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
But there's still nothing in this bill, and again, I wrestle with this because you project tremendous personal credibility.
Right. Thank you.
But what we're wrestling with here is not the gentleman's credibility, but the broad practice of this across the state, and there's nothing in this bill that prohibits optometrists from touching the eyeball, and that's my concern. Because the words on the page we vote on doesn't address that.
So let's take a look at, and let me go through some of this so we can be very clear, because I think it does. If you take a look at, if everybody has a bill, I think we've seen this ad infinitum, but if you take a look at the bill, let's start line 11 through 14. Each one of those areas actually talk about different areas around and in and through the eye. There's very specific medical language that says we're not going into the eye, around the eye, through the eye. I think it's spelled out there. It says we can do this with the exception of these places. And so I think it does address into the eye, which is what I think a lot of people have a lot of angst about. The one place that it doesn't, and being open kimono and making sure that we're all clear about what we're talking about when you talk about this little cellophane, is the subconjunctival space. And in that space, it is right next to the limbus of the eye, a very thin layer, and quite frankly, if optometrists want to do that, it's in very rare cases if somebody has anterior uveitis or some issues that they really have to deal with, but that's something that may be referred. But it is not going into the eye, through the eye, around the eye, or anything like that.
Do you continue to yield?
Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield the well, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Gentleman has yielded the well. The previous question has been ordered. There is an amendment offered to the bill. It is Amendment AM 360594. Clerk will read the amendment.
AM 360594, amend the House Committee on Regulated Industries substitute to SB 153, LC 337012S, by inserting between program and consisting on line 18 the following. Sponsored by a school or college of optometry credentialed by the United States Department of Education and the Council on Post-Secondary Accreditation. By deleting lines 19 through 21 and inserting in lieu thereof the following. Is enrolled in an injectionables training program sponsored by a school or college of optometry credentialed by the United States Department of Education and the Council on Post-Secondary Accreditation in order to fulfill the requirements of such training program consisting of a minimum of 30 hours approved by the board and is under the direct supervision of a physician licensed under Chapter 34 of this title and board certified in ophthalmology.
Is there any objection to adopting the amendment? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 153 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. All right, I'm advised by the clerk's office you need to take your card out and then put it back in. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Bill 153. The ayes are 121, the nays are 36. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 108. Senate Bill 108. We're still on the rules calendar. This House will be in order. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 108 by Senator Walker, the 20th, to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 4, Title 38 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Department of Veterans Service so as to require maintenance of a women's veterans office by the Commissioner of Veterans Services. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Defense and Veteran Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Rogers to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to present to you Senate Bill 108 about the Women's Veterans Office. I guess I could make a joke about the ayes have it, but I won't do that. Al just got it.
Okay.
On a very serious note, you know, since 1776, when this country was founded, about 1.5 million veterans have lost their lives in defense of our freedoms and our liberties.
Well,
and you know, as a person who grew up in a military family, I understand the concept of service. And I think that we owe it to our veterans to provide them the best service that we can give them through our VA. And what this bill does is it creates a situation with the Georgia Veterans Association, the Commissioner of Defense and Veterans Affairs, and it asks them to put together a women's veterans office to study very, very specific concerns. Currently, there are over 750,000 veterans in Georgia right now. And while most of these veterans have re-entered into society and lead normal lives, if you look at the numbers, it's kind of amazing. When you sit there and you think about it, veterans face a higher risk of domestic abuse, substance abuse, and suicide. And our VA offices do a really, really good job of dealing with this, but they can't do everything. What this bill does is to take and to give another tool to our veterans offices to outreach veterans, very specifically women, but also men too, to deal with issues. And it's just really an add-on sort of thing if you look at it, because our offices are already doing it, but at the same time, they're doing it on a part-time basis, and it's somebody doing this through our main office as sort of an add-on to their job responsibilities. You know, as most of you know, we've kind of led the nation in the last couple of years in criminal justice reform. One of the things that we've really been big on is accountability courts and veterans courts. And another part of this job, another part of this responsibility is for this person in this office who is very, very well trained to deal with those accountability courts and to talk with the judges about some of the issues that veterans face. Overall, I think it's a great thing. It's a bill that's needed. I'd like to give a shout out to Representative Sandra Scott. She started working on this a couple of years ago, and Senator Walker brought it this year. And it's, you know, the bill, I kind of like the concept that everybody who serves is a veteran. This bill in no way is intended to create any type of division whatsoever. All it does is just give another tool to make our veteran services much more effective. So I would ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 108. It's already fully funded, it's in the budget, and it's just something to give back to the people who defend our freedoms and our liberties every day. Mr. Speaker, I think that pretty much sums it up, but I'll take any questions if there are any.
You do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Most definitely, to my friend.
Is it not true that as an Army veteran with 18 years of service and one of the few that continue to serve in our Army Reserve, that I expressed my concerns to you regarding this bill?
It's very true. First of all, let me thank you for your service and your continued service.
Is it further not true? Is it not true that a conversation I had with Commissioner Mike Roby, he further explained to me the need for this office that is currently being done now. It meets a need. It does not in any way dilute the overall effort for helping our veterans, but it simply adds another tool for a vital need that we have in our veteran community.
That's true, and you use the word tool, and in our discussions, I think you've summed up pretty well. It's another weapon in the arsenal for our veterans.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Look forward to voting for the bill.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Coach Williams to your right for a question. He waves.
Coach is waving.
Coach just likes to wave to me once a day. Thank you. I appreciate it, too. You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will yield the well, and I will ask you to support our veterans by voting for SB 108.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Scott to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a former staff sergeant in the United States Army, I want to thank the governor for financing this female veterans position. As a soldier and as a female soldier, we need this into the budget. We needed the $150,000 into the budget because as a female soldier, we have issues that men do not have. Our female suicide rate is up, and we're hoping that this would help us to be able to counter some of the female issues that they have. Really down in rural Georgia, a lot of female veterans do not know what they are entitled to. And this would give us more outreach into rural Georgia areas for female veterans, as well as other male soldiers that may need it. Because, you know, a lot of times we talk about sexual trauma. Males do not want to talk to other males, so they will have a female veterans coordinator that they would be able to go out and speak to. And I would like to thank you all for bringing this bill to the floor, and I ask for your favorable consideration for Senate Bill 108. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well. I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 108 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 108, the ayes are 163, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The Rules Committee met this morning and has passed out a supplemental calendar. From that supplemental calendar, the clerk will read Senate Resolution 228.
Senate Resolution 228 by Senator Jones, the 25th, and others, authorizing the conveyance and lease of certain state-owned real properties, to provide an effective date, and to repeal conflicting laws. This bill having referred to the Committee on State Properties. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Perkle to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am happy to present SR 228. Of the two legislation we always provide from state properties, one is the easements that we did this morning, which was SR 229. The other is a conveyance, which is SR 228. I will not go through all 19 projects that we have from the state, unless, of course, you would like me to. The one that is of, you want to hear all of 19? Okay, well, in Baldwin County, I'm kidding though, Mr. Representative, of the one I've heard the most discussion about has to do with the CSX property. This is the rail line is 130 some odd miles, 137 miles of rail line that extends from Atlanta to Chattanooga. CSX has leased this property from the state for since 1890. The lease is coming up shortly for renewal, and this legislation does enter into that CSX lease, will allow the state properties to enter into a lease agreement with the CSX. One of the things that is added, which was a rules amendment, will be inserted in line 990 to allay any concerns that we might have of locking in a long-term lease with CSX without the opportunity for there to be a consideration for passenger rail service. And that amendment reads as such: provided that such lease does not preclude any authorized uses by the state, which appears to clear up the matter regarding the CSX and potential future passenger rail. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will stand for questions or yield the will.
You have no questions.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. There is an amendment on the bill. An amendment is offered. It is AM 440041 by Representative Coomer and others. Is there objection to the amendment, or the clerk will read the amendment?
Amend the substitute to SR 228, LC 440434S by inserting, provided that such lease does not preclude any authorized use by the state after Inc. on line 990.
Is there objection to the amendment? Is there objection? Chair hears none. The amendment has been adopted. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the adoption of Senate Resolution 228, the ayes are 161, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 226.
Senate Bill 226 by Senator Miller, the 49th, to be titled an act to amend Title III, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to alcoholic beverages, so as to change certain provisions relating to the regulation of alcoholic beverages, to change provisions relating to certain annual production requirements for Georgia farm wineries, and to provide for related matters. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Regulated Industries Committee, Chairman Maxwell, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, after what we've been through this afternoon, we may all be ready for a little wine. This bill just allows us to have our farm wineries on line 53, page 2. They can bring in 20% currently bulk wine from other states to mix with the wine we produce in Georgia. We're asking that to go to 40%. On line 13, it still states farm wineries, means a winery must make at least 40% of its annual production from agricultural produce grown in the state of Georgia. There's been a little disconnect from that 40% to the 20% on the other page. Some of our larger wineries are bumping up against this if they have a bad crop of grapes or problems come up, and then increasing production, this will help them with that. So I'm asking for your favorable consideration. All of our associations are on board with it. Everybody's happy with this change. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 226 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 226. The ayes are 155. The nays are 5. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 121.
Senate Bill 121 by Senator Miller, the 49th, to be titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 4, Title 26, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to pharmacies, so as to provide that the state health officer may issue a standing order permitting certain persons and entities to obtain opioid antagonists under the conditions the state health officer may impose. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative F. Strachan to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring before you today Senate Bill 121. As you're all aware, in this country, we're dealing with an opioid abuse problems and what epidemic. It's been a long day. I apologize. The naloxone is the drug, the controlled substance that's mentioned here, and it would allow for use as it's used to treat narcotic overdoses in emergency situations. This legislation will help to save lives, protect Georgians through greater availability of this anti-opioid agent that helps to address the symptoms associated with an opioid overdose. Mr. Speaker, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Would ask the members for the favorable consideration. Yeah.
You have no question.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill. The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 121 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 121. The ayes are 163. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Dauphine Tyson Scott. Honoring the life and memory of Hal Haddock Jr. Recognizing the Russell Stevenson Williams mini family and friend reunion July 14th through 17th, 2017. Commending Seth Michaels. Commending Barbara J. Evans, Chair of the Georgia Society of CPAs. Commending Lisa Linda Casey, Pepperell High School's 2017 Star Teacher. Commending Jamie Weisner, Rome High School's 2017 Star Teacher. Commending Carson Ernest, Unity Christian School's 2017 Star Student. Commending Jamie Barrett, Armucci High School's 2017 Star Student. Commending Donna Bojo, Unity Christian Schools 2017 Star Teacher. Commending Greg Marshall, Darlington Schools 2017 Star Teacher. Commending Abby Hensley, Pepperell High School's 2017 Star Student. Recognizing and commending Pastor Benjamin Lockhart Jr. on the occasion of his retirement. Honoring the life and memory of Herbert Charles Birding Sr. Commending and congratulating Murray Bernard Payton. Recognizing and commending the Assistance League of Atlanta on the occasion of its 35th anniversary. Commending the 12 and under Dixie Youth baseball team from Baldwin County, Milledgeville, Georgia, for winning the 2016 Georgia State Championship. Recognizing and commending former State Representative Rusty Kidd. Honoring Hooper Renwick High School and encouraging the protection and preservation of its historical integrity. Honoring the life and memory of Stanley Edwards Sr. Congratulating Roy H. Sonny Watson on the occasion of his 80th birthday. Recognizing Gold Star Father Day in Georgia on November 9th, 2017. Recognizing and commending Deborah Gonzalez for her outstanding achievements. Recognizing and commending Pastor Benjamin Lockhart Jr. on the occasion of his retirement. Honoring the life and memory of Andrew Harvey Lemon. Honoring the life and memory of Marjorie Hall Guy. Celebrating the birth of William Bill Judson Ward IV and Margaret Mimi Lovett Ward. Recognizing March 24th and 25th, 2017 as the 14th Annual Walter Rodney Symposium, honoring Dr. C. Clayton Powell on the occasion of his 90th birthday, commending the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and recognizing May 1st, 2017 as Cystic Fibrosis Education and Awareness Day at the State Capitol, recognizing and commending Jason Michael Judge for his outstanding academic and athletic career, recognizing and commending the LaGrange chapter of Continental Societies Incorporated, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. This House will be in recess until 4:20 p.m.